Alright, so this is my online tutorial for a variation on weekly homework. This assignment is combining Pinterest and WordPress. So, you all probably have the same problems with homework that I do in college, and that is that things get routine, they get boring, students stop caring. This typically happens in college around midway through the semester, and that's not when students need to drop off an interest. And what I have here is the age-old problem of pen and paper. We still are loving the notebooks. Well, we need to look towards the internet. And we also need to start to give our students more choice. We tend to assign a certain number of pages for a reading, and that's all they get. They have to read that particular book. In this case, we need to give them more variety so they can choose what they are interested in individually. We also need to ask students to give us both their opinion and provide higher analysis of the materials at hand. Sometimes we're going to get one and sometimes we're going to get the other, but we need to try and ask them to do both because students tend to form opinions before they can get to higher analysis, and we don't need to disregard that stage. So my solution is Pinterest and WordPress. These are two different sites. They're both Web 2.0. Pinterest is going to allow students to see a variety of images. This is a female-dominated site, so you have all the typical fitness and beauty images, but we're also, in this case, going to be using history. We're going to use historical advertisements on Pinterest. WordPress is a blogging site. It's very simple, and that is where we're going to ask our students to put down their thoughts about the images that they see on Pinterest. Both of these are fortunate in a way because students are going to be able to look at them on their own time and at their own pace, and they're going to be able to do it at home or at work. Now this is really great because even though the assignment's probably going to be the same just as any other assignment, they will now be able to spend as much time as they would like on the assignment, looking at the materials, not feeling pressured to, say, turn them into the library. So why does it even work? Students, in this case of my activity that I've created, are able to choose several ads from a collection of images. In my case, I had them choose 6 out of 26 images. You could probably lower this, probably to even 3. But this idea of giving them a choice is very interesting because I think we find that students will gravitate to what interests them and they'll feel more passionate about the subject. We also are going to make them do blog posts, okay? And this is where they get to note their opinions and their thoughts. All right, so this is our opinion and higher analysis point. I have, in my activity, done 2 posts. So the first one is their opinions post, and their second one is their higher analysis post. And this way, we're going to get to see students thinking critically about the advertisements. Sometimes they are really careless, and that's what we're going to see a lot in the opinion blog post, but you actually start to realize that students are trying to process what's going on in these images with their blog post. Another reason that this works is because of system thinking. So the higher analysis question is basically asking the students to think about what is going on with all of these images. And that way you see students having to put the individual pieces into a larger picture. They are also going to make judgments and decisions about their sources. So they have to decide things like what's going on in this picture, who is this aimed for, you know, what's going on in terms of race or gender or even class. And that's really interesting because you are asking them to go through this process and really contemplate it. Students are also get to articulate their own thoughts and ideas to each other and the professor. Sometimes in college, I know, we end up finding that professors just lecture at the students, and they might have brief moments where they ask for discussion, but this way we get to see in depth what people are thinking. So, fortunately, this is all made very easy by technology, okay? Pinterest is really intriguing for the visual modern mind. This is the world of Instagram and Facebook, and Pinterest is right there, and we should access it. Blogs are perfect too because these are just the same writing assignments that we've always done that have always been turned in on pen and paper, but now it's online. They allow for easy expression and instant updates, so students can even go back and edit things after they've thought about it for a while, which is great. Everything is free and accessible, and in this increasingly expensive college world that we are living in, where tuition is always rising, I love using free and accessible technology. The feedback is also immediate and clear. There's none of this awkward back and forth that sometimes happens with these, scribbled notes on exams, but rather, it's firmly typed up and everyone can see. So my particular project was I asked 3 college students to complete the assignment, which is this advertisements from the 1920s assignment on their own time at home, however long they thought they should use. So they made WordPress blogs, and they accessed my Pinterest through a link that I provided to them in an email. I really didn't give them that many directions. I really wanted to see what they were going to do with it. But I did tell them that they had to choose 6 ads out of 26, and then to write 2 blog posts based on these selected images. The first post was going to be their opinions post, where they talk about them individually, and then the second post was going to be where they think about all the ads together and what it tells them about the 1920s. So the results are actually really favorable. They easily took to Pinterest and WordPress. This is probably because they're really familiar with Web 2.0. They grew up in it. Pinterest is a little strange to handle, I think, for some of the gentlemen, because that's not what they particularly do. But blogs are incredibly easy to understand and to even use, and so they enjoyed being able to go forth and do what they wanted with WordPress, because everybody kind of did it a little differently. They also loved the idea of choosing their own ads. A couple of them really chose the same ones. They really liked Coca-Cola, for example. But they all really engaged with the materials, and they did so at their own time and at their own pace. I had one student who spent 3 hours on it. I had another that spent 45. I don't really want it to be 3 hours, so I'm going to try in the future to make it an hour. But I do appreciate that they spend a lot of time thinking about it, because that was the point of the project. They also were really interested in the 1920s and ads by the end of it, which was great because these aren't people that are particularly interested in history. So we're going to take a little tour of my activity and my results. So this is my Pinterest. So these are my 1920s advertisements. And as you can see here, I've just put them onto my Pinterest. I pinned them, as the phrase is. And I gave them 26 options, and they chose 6 from it. So these vary tremendously, and if a student, say, wants to click one and look closer at it, you can just click it in that way, and you can save it just the way you would save anything by doing it that way. Alright, so what's really great is then we find that students went and did blog posts. Okay, so this is Jared's post, and this is 1920s ads, and so this is what he started to do. So he actually was very casual about it. First, I'm struck by it's black and white, no color TVs here, and we continued to see that. But so basically a paragraph for each of them. He went on for his second post, the higher analysis post, to talk about the 1920s, which he says it seems in short that the 1920s are awesome. So this is interesting because this kind of is our C grade. This is more of our B. This is the second post for her. This is Samantha's. And she did a little more. She was definitely more curious about the 1920s, so lots of questions. But you can see here, so she is talking about the text and the images, which is great because I didn't really tell them what to do, but she figured it out pretty quick. Caleb spent 3 hours on it, and he really got into it. So this is his first post, and he definitely analyzed it in a different way, less curious, more formal. And blogs really allow you to do whatever you want with that, and so I think he appreciated being able to do what he wanted. So if you wanted to do this kind of assignment, you would just go to WordPress and have that available for your students. I'd probably step them through it, and you would have a Pinterest available. So you would just go to Pinterest.com and sign in. You'd make a Pinterest, and Pinterest generally is always going to look like this. And you would make a new board. Okay, so we are going to create a board. So in this case, we'll say, how about 1930s advertisements? Oh, advertisements. All right, and so We'll save it. There's nothing pinned there, and so we would pin an image to it. And all you do there is, if you won't have it on your computer, you would upload it. You can have it from a URL, or you can even pin from another person's board. And so then you would, obviously have a study guide, send the kids the link, and then ask them to make WordPresses, which is incredibly easy to do, and then have them link those back to you, and then review them. And so you would be able to see their posts and comment on them, and even see when they did it, right? So this has actually been really successful for me. I'd be really curious if it does well in K through 12. I definitely know in college that students can do this quite fine, but definitely need to be careful with your instructions because students can go any kind of way with this. For example, Caleb, who spent 3 hours, may have gotten an A, but he really shouldn't have spent 3 hours doing this because the project was more of an hour. So you need to ask students to realize that you're not trying to demand their entire night to do the homework, but rather to think of it as a more fun, contemplative thought experiment. So I've really enjoyed doing this, and I would really like to see other people try it. And so that was how I did with this. And thank you for listening.